you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People podcast. That's right. If you are here, it means you are here because you care about people over politics, people over parties. You are here because you are anti-algorithm. You are not here to support the algorithm. You are here to break the algorithm. I'm not talking about like that fake red pill shit that like got co-opted. Like, you know, now everybody just associates red pill with being anti-democrat. Yeah, we're anti-democrat, but we're anti-republican too, man. We pro-people, pro-human. We talk about things in a way that actually takes into account the human element and take into account the empathy we need to move forward if we are ever going to survive this, I guess, I don't know what else to call it, but this chaos that we are calling, for some reason, the status quo. If you want to support the show, y'all know already, hopefully. If this is your first time, you don't know. But if you've been here before, you already know, bro, we don't got a single type of monetization on YouTube. YouTube does not like us. I doubt they will like us anytime soon. So if you want to support the show, you can do so by becoming a premium subscriber on Rockfin. Also, you can do, and the link is in the description, but also you can do super chats through Rockfin as well. Super simple. You can also do Cash App if you prefer. Bitcoin address is in the description below. And Patreon as well. You can become a monthly patron on Patreon for as little as $1. Like I said, obviously, y'all know YouTube do not like me. So every little bit helps. That's how we're going to get back to where we were before the censorship. So there was something else I wanted to say before. Oh, Pasta Jardula. Before I get started with everything else, Pasta Jardula did an amazing documentary called Lahaina on Fire from his trip to Lahaina that a lot of you actually contributed to help him get there and cover the real story. I strongly encourage you all to go to the Convo Couches page and go watch that documentary. It's amazing. It's not super long, had a lot of important information, and it gives you a very, very good perspective of what's going on the ground. Pasta just does such amazing work. So proud of him, man. Can't say it enough. He's just very dedicated to the cause. This is just who he is. So go watch his story, or excuse me, watch their story, watch his video documentary on that situation in Maui. Yeah, go do that. I think it's on the Convo Couches page. It's also on Pasta's Twitter at YoPasta. Anything else? Housekeeping, administrative stuff. Oh yeah, sorry I didn't get to stream yesterday, and sorry I didn't get to stream this weekend. Your boy got sick as a dog. Oh my God. So the weather in Rio has been crazy. It was like 100 one day, then it was like 70 the next day, then it was like 95 the day after that, and then it was like 65. Y'all know I got a Miami body. My body has Miami temperament. Okay. I like my days to be consistently 80 to 95, preferably 90 consistently. And if it's going to be a cold week, it needs to be cold that whole 1 week, and then it needs to be hot again. But that's not what happened, you know. So my body was adjusting, did not like it. And then I was sick as a dog last week. Good God. Couldn't talk. Even yesterday, I couldn't talk without coughing. Like I was running out of breath quickly because whenever I get a cold, my asthma acts up. So that sucked. But a lot of stuff happened last week. A lot of stuff happened last week, and a lot of stuff happened this weekend. So we are going to talk about all of that today. All right. So make sure we got 56 people watching on Instagram. I mean, we should have 56 likes. And if you didn't share, we got problems. All right. First topic of the day. First topic. RFK Jr. is announcing on October 9th that he will be running as an independent. And I got to applaud the guy. Obviously, we're going to go ahead and say the obvious. Still pissed about his Israel-Palestine position. And I can say with confidence that many people on his campaign do not like the position. And that's, you know, something that he's going to absolutely need to improve on going forward. But that does not necessarily take away from the fact that He's doing something that somebody like myself, many observers of elections over the last 8 to 10 years, possibly even more than that for some people, but especially since 2015, 2016, people wanted Bernie to do this. I don't know if you all recall, but Jill Stein had even like pushed Bernie and said that she will drop out, or not necessarily drop out the Green Party race, but she will concede, be vice president, and Bernie can run the Green Party ticket. But there obviously is there's a window that you have to take advantage of in order to make it legitimate and obviously get ballot access and all that good stuff. Clearly, RFK weighed his options. He didn't pretend as if the Democratic Party wasn't cheating. In fact, he spent a considerable amount of time the last couple of weeks making sure everyone knew that the Democratic Party is cheating. And not gonna lie, got a little soft spot for that, guys. You know, like I got a little soft spot for people who call the Democratic Party. You know, I have a lot of respect for Dr. West, but I don't need my candidates referring to Jim Crow Joe as Brother Biden. I need to know that you are out for blood, proverbially. I need to know that you understand just how corrupt the Democratic Party is. You understand what I'm saying? Like, even still, sometimes I will cringe because like RFK Jr. will talk about like, oh, the Democratic Party of old. And I'm like, me and him gonna have to sit down one day and have a little history lesson, because this is the Democratic Party. Harry S. Truman did not become president because the Democratic Party just, they thought that he was the best option to replace FDR. No, he stole Henry Wallace's VP spot, and bada bing, bada boom. We end up with the CIA. We end up with Operation Mockingbird. We end up with the atomic bomb. We end up with the Dulles brothers running the show, Secretary of State and CIA director. We end up in the Cold War. They balkanized the USSR by infiltration. We end up with, if I'm not mistaken, Truman was there during Mossadegh. He was, yeah. So you see, like that one decision by the Democratic Party changed the fate of the entire world, including the civil rights movement. So at least he's acknowledging what the Democratic Party is in real time. However, I would like, now that he's out of the Democratic Party, he will be announcing allegedly on the 9th that he's out of the Democratic Party. It is a good time for RFK Jr. And by the way, holla at me, dog. If you need help with that, if you want a history lesson on the Democratic Party, I got you. But it is a great time for him to understand just how corrupt the Democratic Party is, because he has a very unique voice in a very unique microphone. And probably most importantly, he has the fundraising mechanism like he already has. Like, remember what we would say about Bernie. Here's what we like. Yeah, Tulsi, I prefer Tulsi. Everybody knows this because she would speak to the corruption of the Democratic Party actually probably more ferociously than RFK does. But the reality is she didn't have the name recognition in the beginning, nor did she have the movement that she had already put together from 2016 like Bernie did. Bernie had a political apparatus that was quite literally unmatched. Until this day, we haven't really seen it like repeated, partially because of the fault of Bernie Sanders, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Actually, no, we're going to talk about that today. But because he had that political apparatus, we expected him to use that in a way that would, one, hold the party accountable, so that two, he could be elected, or more importantly, the person who actually won would actually win. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if you're allowed to say election fraud on here anymore, but basically we wanted to make sure that there was accountability in our and integrity in our election system. I think that's a fair, but he didn't do that. He didn't do that. Instead, he took hundreds of millions of dollars. I need to say that again, because I don't know if y'all quite understand how many hundreds is. Hundreds is a lot. Millions is a lot. Hundreds of millions of dollars is crazy. That's basketball player money. That's superstar. I'm 6'8", putting this ball in the basket at a ridiculous clip. Okay, that's Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi money. That's Tom Brady in the booth money. Like hundreds of millions. But the difference is they got it from a talent and then they delivered. That's the difference between them. Okay. Bernie lied to us. He took hundreds of millions of dollars from poor and working class people, convinced us that he was going to fight for us. After he denied that he was cheated and then admitted he was cheated, because he obviously went on that tour with Eric Perez, he then pretended the next time he wasn't cheated, and then he pretended other candidates weren't cheating, because for the first time he actually probably saw a path to the White House, to winning the Democratic primary. But like he literally like would deny that Tulsi was being cheated. He would not speak up for the candidates who actually were inspired to run by Bernie. Like it was like Yang. I don't really like Yang, but he was at least honest in the sense that, yeah, I am here, and this universal basic income thing came from ideas that were sparked by Bernie's movement. Tulsi obviously said the same thing. She just felt Bernie was weak on a lot of policies, including foreign policy and environmental policy, and actually healthcare. But Marianne Williamson said the same thing, and she was inspired by Bernie. So when they were being cheated, they were being left up. I'm saying, like, even though I don't like Marianne Williamson, I don't like Yang, like they were being cheated objectively. He just dismissed it, when we know that those same people called out whenever Bernie was being cheated, because it was the right thing to do, especially Tulsi. Tulsi left the DNC committee. She was a vice chair, actually, and left. So when you take hundreds of millions of dollars from poor people, when you had an opportunity to go independent and chose not to, not once, but twice, it says a lot about you as a person. But when you, in the case of RFK Jr., he hasn't garnered hundreds of millions of dollars. He hasn't filled up stadiums yet. But he has, I think he's raised tens of millions of dollars already. He has a pretty good apparatus so far. Like, he's built a very solid foundation. He wouldn't be able to, honestly, he wouldn't be as high in the polls as he is. He wouldn't be considered as much of a threat as he's been if he wasn't just very, very prepared to challenge Biden in a serious way in the primary. The Democrats would literally be restructuring their entire electoral system, their entire primary system, if RFK wasn't equipped to challenge Biden in a serious way. But instead of wasting our time, instead of wasting our money, I haven't donated, but I'm just saying, in contrast to what Bernie did, I did donate to Bernie, but instead of wasting people's time, instead of wasting people's money, instead of building this massive apparatus to then take it and create some bullshit nonprofit for yourself and your family, create some book for yourself to make money, instead of kissing the ring for Biden and the Democratic Party to get a position in the Senate, he's like, yeah, I see where this is going. I'd rather be independent. I respect the hell out of that. I respect the hell out of that. And to be clear, of course, I will continue to criticize Kennedy wherever I feel necessary, like his position on Israel-Palestine. I have my theories about that, by the way, if y'all would like to hear it in a second. But I've also criticized Dr. West because it's necessary. At the end of the day, I haven't endorsed anybody. I don't know if I plan on endorsing anybody exclusively. I do know that Dr. West and Bobby have unique ways that they can challenge the system, and I will shed light on those ways. But I haven't really decided. I don't even know who I'm voting for yet. But once again, I do know that this situation with Peter Dow and like just some of the decision making going on behind the scenes, it just leaves me in doubt. And I have a lot of love and respect for the activist Dr. West. I have a lot of love and respect for him, seriously. And I have a lot of love and respect for him for making the tough decision to support Bernie Sanders at the time. I have a lot of love and respect for him when he spoke up in support of Tulsi whenever people in the Bernie camp were literally attacking her just for running. So like, yeah, but on the other side of that fence, I'm a very pragmatic person, and people can say what you want. I'm passionate, but I'm not emotional. Not when it comes to politics. I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm very passionate about politics, but I'm passionate about making logical choices. I'm passionate about ideological consistency. And Dr. West has shown me a lot of quote unquote passion and emotion about very specific issues involving activists. I don't know his policies. I know things that he said. I don't know how he would govern. I want to know my whole, so anybody who's followed me for a while understands that the way I operate, the way my mind thinks, is actually pretty simple. I want to know how you're going to act when you have everything to lose, because that will tell me everything about how you're going to govern. I can forgive mistakes. Like that's not really, like everybody's human. I'm not going to agree with you on everything. That's ludicrous. Like I'm not a sycophant, nor should, and you shouldn't be either. But when you have everything to lose, are you going to call Fauci a good man, brother Fauci? He's doing a great job, knowing damn well Fauci lying to the public and making bank to the tune of $2 million during the pandemic while lying to the public? Are you going to, and if you're going to call him brother Fauci, are you at least going to hold him accountable when the time comes? Are you going to call, he called Tucker Carlson white supremacist, and Anderson Cooper's brother Cooper doing a great job, as they're asking you to drop out? Or are you going to tell CNN exactly who they are, exactly what they represent, and the damage that they do to the Black community? Not just all, like they do damage to all communities, obviously, but they do damage specifically to the Black community as well. Not unlike what Tucker did while on Fox News. Hasn't really said anything negative about Black people since, actually. Pretty kind of surprising. I've maintained for a while that Tucker put on the show for Fox News because that's what he was supposed to do. That was his act. And he hasn't really got into identity politics since then, for the most part. So, which I can appreciate, by the way. But I can admit when he's at fault, but I can also admit when Anderson Cooper's at fault. But Dr. West can't seem to parse between the two, whereas RFK Jr. is very clear at the bare minimum who the enemies are. He's not afraid to say who the CIA has assassinated. He's not afraid to call out Joe Biden. He's not afraid to call out NATO. He doesn't do the whole waffling back and forth. Yeah, I don't support Ukraine, but Putin is a dictator. Like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I want to know when you have the most to lose, and of course, sometimes the most to gain. But RFK Jr. during that P word that we all dealt with in 2020, 2021, P word, you know what I'm talking about, P word from the C word. RFK Jr. followed the science. RFK Jr. spoke his mind. RFK Jr. represented people who were having their rights violated. Hell, RFK Jr., I know for a fact, RFK Jr. was giving jobs, helping support people who had been fired for trying to fight for their rights during that time period. Knowing that he could be attacked, he could be thrown under the bus, God knows what else. He had everything to lose, really had nothing to gain, because it's RFK Jr. All he had to do is just maintain he's a Kennedy. And he chose to fight the hard battle. Right now, currently, he's a member of the Democratic Party. And even when you are, quote unquote, anti-Democratic Party, you still have something to gain from being inside of it. But once you leave, especially when you leave in the fashion that he is about to leave on the 9th, you have a lot to lose going forward, including the people who were already planning on supporting you in the primary, potentially. Like maybe because their states is, now they might support Biden, and they could just consistently support him going forward. You just never know. You never know. There's more work to be done now because you have to. It's easier if you just go straight independent. It's actually easier to get ballot access. To my understanding, I'm gonna figure that out for y'all and do a show about that specifically, like what path he would need. But he has everything to lose, and he's choosing to go independent. He's trusting in the people who his apparatus, Dennis Kucinich, the people who's like and others who support him. Like he's trusting them and their judgment. I'm sure a lot of them have been telling him, "Hey, bro, don't even waste your time anymore." It's not an easy decision to make because now you have to make history effectively. So I have a lot of respect for RFK Jr. When it comes to that. Now, I really would like to see him improve or just stay quiet completely when it comes to the issue of Israel and Palestine. Like he's not good on it. Now, the strategic reality, and I know people don't like to hear this, but once again, I'm a pragmatist. The strategic reality is that 95% of the country does not care about Israel and Palestine. And it is extremely unfortunate because the apathy regarding that particular issue is exactly why that issue is allowed to persist in silence for the most part. That's the reality of it. And that's because it's caused by both parties. It's caused by both parties and AIPAC, of course. The reality is the Israel-Palestine conflict will stop him from getting endorsements openly, but it won't stop him from it won't lose him a bunch of votes, unfortunately. Like if it would lose him a bunch of votes, I'm sure he would change his mind, but that's just the reality. Now, what I have been told, this is conjecture, but this is what I've been told. He does not, I don't know if y'all recall, but basically he was attacked for effectively supporting Palestine. And if you actually look prior to that whole situation where AIPAC basically forced him to go on tour for like a week, he was he was never a Zionist. RFK Jr. has never been a Zionist. He's never attacked Palestine. He's never criticized Palestine. It was when he made a very basic statement. Yeah, they deserve equal rights. They deserve human dignity like everybody else. It was bop, 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 bop. Because they knew that if they attacked him from that perspective, one, AIPAC would jump on. Two, the Jewish community, the Zionist specifically community would jump on him. And that in turn would stop leftists who would have supported him from openly supporting him. And just which, I mean, when you think about it strategically, it is smart because that's exactly what happened. But he's also the campaign is painfully aware that the dude is in danger constantly. Like he had an attempt on his life already. People think that, CIA obviously, but with the Mossad have a bad habit of offing people who won't fall in line, who try to bring peace to the region. So somebody told me, and I tend to agree, we'll see how it develops, but somebody told me you have to just trust his rhetoric when it comes to all other foreign policy, as far as he's a pretty staunch advocate for peace. He's very clear about that. And he's trust what you heard before, not what you heard from the pressure. Because there's just a real reality that people are very aware that his life could be in danger because he's a Kennedy. And when you have the White House actively denying Secret Service, it's one thing if they offered Secret Service and he chose not to take it, and he would be justified because how well has the Secret Service done in the past when it comes to protecting Kennedy's family members, right? Okay. But he didn't reject Secret Service. They're absolutely refusing him Secret Service and then going on the news. You're having people go on the news, then justify why they're not giving him Secret Service. So the danger that he is in, being a Kennedy, bucking the system, not just right now, but everything that he's done over the last 3 years. That is a reality that they have to live in, and we're fully aware how Mossad and the CIA operate. So but I would love to see him now that he's an independent. I want to see him move on that issue. Has to, because I feel that issue is a make or break for the people. It may not lose you the election per se, like with the votes, but it will affect your allies, your public allies, and those people can win you votes or lose you votes potentially. So, from a strategic perspective, and just from obviously an empathic, fact-based perspective, it's not a. This is one of the few issues in politics that is very, very black and white. Israel is an apartheid state. Palestine is a victim of an apartheid state. It is not difficult to comprehend. So, we'll read some of these comments and then we'll go to the next topic. But yeah, I'm excited. TD, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the tip in Rockfin. You are doing great service awakening people, Niko. Peace. Oh, appreciate you, TD. Good looking out. Who's paying for RFK security right now? RFK is paying out of pocket right now. RFK needs to travel in the Pope Mobile. You're not too far off. He needed to ride in that whatever bulletproof car. You know, back in the day, how 50 Cent used to ride in bulletproof everything. He needed to ride in that. That's what he need. Stephen B said he'll garner around 1 million signatures, potentially more. Austin said he needs the APAC money. RFK actually does not need APAC money. That's the funny part. He doesn't need APAC money at all. To be real, he's getting a lot of former Trump money. And this, a lot of people who are pissed at Bernie donate to RFK Jr. A lot of people who like Trump, but they feel RFK is a populist that Trump strives to be, and he's serious about it. You gotta remember during the P thing that happened. Y'all remember the P because of the C, that 3 years, can't talk about it on YouTube. RFK was on the right side of history. What did Trump do? Operation Warp Speed. And a lot of his supporters have not forgotten that. They have not forgotten that at all. So they look past it, but they haven't forgotten it, because especially as we're hearing more and more what happened, rollouts, people getting Nobel prizes for the jab. Like, people are like, oh, here we go again. And they know the next president will likely decide the direction the country goes when everything starts getting crazy again. So DWS, yeah, DWS is the W.I. Schultz was trying to silence him. Like, clearly, dude is making some kind of waves. Clearly. If just going independence, like, bro. Yes. Don't waste my damn money. Don't waste my damn time. You feel me? Like, don't waste my money and my time, bro. Like, if you're going to do the damn thing, do it all the way. That's what I just can't stand people who, hey, halfway crooks. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I can't stand people who like, oh, like Bernie, we're gonna fight a revolution until the convention. Then I gotta do what they say. Nah, like people like me, I hear the word revolution. I'm on the spectrum, y'all. I take not everything literally, but when I hear revolution and you say it with that type of passion, I'm taking it literally. Oh shit, we revolution time. I'm getting in shape. Y'all remember how I was, you know what I'm saying? I'm running, going to the range. I was ready, but I was at Philly. I was ready to go. I ain't have my haircut. I was looking scruffy at Philly. I was ready for whoa. I was ready to do whatever. I was ready to jump fences, all that. But when Bernie meant revolution, what he meant was raise millions of dollars and then get rich and get a position in the Senate and do whatever the Democratic Party says. So yeah, unfortunately. Speaking of Bernie Sanders, let's talk about this. This man said, let's see if I can pull this up. Let's say, y'all know, I'm still working with my Genki operating system right now. So I'm gonna have to do a fundraiser soon because I can't keep doing this. But you know what this man said? Can y'all see this? Y'all can see this, right? Yeah. This man said, I'm delighted that Congress was able to avoid a painful and unnecessary shutdown. I'm also pleased that programs for working families I'm also pleased that programs working families need were not cut and that there was a good increase in funds for disaster relief, which will help Vermonters rebuild from July's terrible flooding. Oh, but he don't stop there. He don't stop there. And if it was just that, I'd be like, okay. But this is where it gets funny. I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russian aggression. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. That's what he said. I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russian aggression. Somebody said to me once, Niko, I know that you don't like Bernie anymore, but like things would be so much better if Bernie was president. I said, you are mistaken. You are still relying on words and, to be quite honest, propaganda. And they're like, what do you mean propaganda? I'm like, Bernie put out a lot of propaganda, but he didn't have a lot of Senate bills introduced to support, to prove his fervor in supporting these issues that he talks about, right? One of the things that attracted me to Tulsi's campaign over Bernie's campaign was because I had one was in the Senate, one was in the House. I actually had a comparison to see who was going to stand on their word, who put the effort and the labor power behind the topics or the subjects or the policies that they advocate for. Bernie almost never. Tulsi had a bill for literally almost every single thing that she had talked about on her the policy portion of her website. And the one thing that she didn't have a policy for was because initially she supported Bernie's bill, but then it got universal health care. And then it got reconstructed and basically just became a reformation of the Social Security Act that was not going to solve the problems. And that's when she decided to introduce her own bill, even for that. So Bernie never showed the conviction that people thought. Where he did show conviction, however, was, if I'm not mistaken, getting the war in Afghanistan wrong. In fact, at the time, I think it was only Barbara Lee who got the war in Afghanistan right. Although Bernie, people always thought that Bernie got Afghanistan right. But he never got it right. He didn't get it right until everybody else figured it out. Bernie supported the bombing of Kosovo. I wish I could find the video of people scolding him in Vermont for supporting the bombing of Kosovo. Bernie be waffling on Israel and Palestine. Bernie engaged in Russiagate. Ugh. To cringe-worthy levels. Right? Bernie will sit there and call Maduro a dictator. Say that Assad is bombing his own, but this is who he's been. I'm scared to see what Bernie said about, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna see what Bernie said about not Mossadegh, my apologies, about Muammar Gaddafi, just randomly. So, because people, like I said, somebody gonna tell me, oh yeah, Bernie would have been a great president. You know, it would have been different. No, I think it could have potentially been worse. Oh man, I forgot. Oh yeah, I remember. Hold on, let me pull it up for y'all. Y'all not really gonna like this, but it's reality. Hold on. I think that some of you all remember this if you were paying attention in 2016. Says this was in Time. Bernie Sanders often attacks Hillary Clinton for being in favor of overthrowing dictators around the world, but but at the Democratic debate Saturday night, she took a swipe back at him on the issue, speaking about overthrowing the government of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in 2011 and ensuing chaos. Former Secretary of State Clinton said, "There's always retrospective to say what mistakes were made. But I know that we offered a lot of help, and I know it was difficult for the Libyans to accept the help." That actually doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Vermont Senator Sanders then recited to Clinton his usual attacks against regime change. The truth is, it is relatively easy for a powerful nation like America to overthrow a dictator, he said. But it is very hard to predict the unintended consequences and the turmoil and in the instability that follows after you overthrow that dictator. I'm not quite a fan of regime change as she is, which is not necessarily true. But Clinton invoked Sanders' record in the Senate to paint him as a hypocrite on the issue. And you know it's bad when Hillary Clinton gets to paint you as a hypocrite. She said, "I think it's only fair to put on the record Senator Sanders voted in the Senate for a resolution calling for the ending of the Gaddafi regime and asking the UN to be brought in." So the moral of the story, this is who Bernie Sanders is. This is who he was. When I read his tweets yesterday or the day before, I want to say 2 days ago, September 30th. So 2 days ago, yeah. When I read his tweets, I wasn't surprised. I was like, yeah, of course he said this. This is who he is. I was telling people this. Remember in 2020 or in 2019, I was like, y'all, I had entire debates where people were trying to claim that Tulsi was more pro-war, even though she wasn't, and burnt in it because they were basically saying by contrast, right? Comparison contrast, Tulsi was more pro-war. And I'm just like, people got mad at me for literally just explaining things like this. I'm like, he voted to overthrow Gaddafi. And there was actually a tweet at the time of Tulsi saying, like, no, we shouldn't do it. And she wasn't even in Congress yet. I don't think she was even in Congress yet, not at the federal level. So, like, what did Jimmy said this the other day? People get mad at the messenger whenever, like, you're trying to warn people. And mind you, I wasn't saying like, okay, Bernie's a horrible person. I'm saying he has a shoddy record on war. Like, sometimes he's okay with it, sometimes he's not. One time, like, sometimes he'll say he's not okay with it and then vote in the opposite direction. In other words, he's a Democrat, right? In other words, he's a Democrat with the I by his name. Independent senator from Vermont, my ass. They don't be telling y'all. Independent senator from Vermont is a technicality because technically they don't have political parties to register for in Vermont, so he can get away with that. But Bernie is a coward, yo. He is just the biggest letdown that was. Y'all want to talk about political awakening? Yeah, his campaign in 2016 was like the inception of my like huge political awakening, like the next jump in my personal political awakening and activism. However, the way he failed us woke me up even more because I was able to then like put my ego, put my hurt feelings and all that good stuff to the side, retroactively go back and look like, no, there were signs. This was a sign. This was a sign. I'm not talking about signs even from 2016, 2017, 2018. I'm like, no, there were signs in 1990. There were signs into early 2000s. Those videos were out there, and I did not hunt them down because I wanted Bernie to be somebody else. I wanted him to be who he said he was. I wanted him to be who everybody else said he was. And like a lot of you all, I didn't, because you saw what happened whenever you literally mildly criticized Bernie in 2020. What happened? You're attacked immediately. Offering a criticism, like, hey, man, like, this happened. Like, does somebody want to address this? Why would you say that? He's our only chance. You got a better option? Like, I didn't say that. What? That's not even what we're talking about. But that's what happened. But I was able to go back and retroactively look at, like, oh no, Bernie's always been a coward. One can make an argument that his career in activism was a direct attempt to find a clique and find an avenue to further his own agenda, because he didn't have anything. Like, his family had moved away. Remember, his parents had passed, unfortunately, before he went to college. His brother moved to Europe. He was in Chicago basically by himself. How do you make friends in that time period as a Jewish kid from Brooklyn? Oh, you get into the civil rights movement. Well, I got a lot of attention from being the one lone white guy, or one of the 2 or 3 lone white guys who are standing up for these black people. Maybe I can make a career out of it, even though I didn't decide to move to Vermont where there's only white people. But one could make an argument that whole thing was just it was self-righteousness with an agenda to be seen as a savior, or as someone called it, a white savior. And it's reality. The way he threw Breonna Joy Gray under the bus after the election, the way he, I don't even think he came to endorse Nina at the time. The way he threw Tulsi under the bus. Like, there was a pattern of black activists within Bernie's campaign, black literally staffers getting thrown to the bus, like, to protect Bernie's ego. So when people were warning about this, we were attacked. His record, when it comes to anything in Africa, is shoddy. Anything in Central and South America is shoddy. When he talked about socialism, for example, he talked about democratic socialism. What countries would he always use? He would say, I'll get so furious. I'm not talking about that bad communism in Venezuela. I'm talking about that great socialism in Scandinavia. So the socialism that doesn't get sanctioned into oblivion and have all their resources stolen. You mean that kind of socialism? Like, yeah, it's easier to be a socialist country whenever you're not getting destroyed for being a socialist nation. So white socialism, great. Brown and black socialism, bad. Like, he would say stuff like that. That was letting us know who he was back then. Right? Like, am I crazy? Tell me if I'm crazy. If I'm crazy, let me know. And I'm very happy that people now call him out. I'm very, like, even his own, like, people who used to, like, work for him call him out. But I said back then, we have to call him out. If you want to hold somebody accountable, you do it while they're in pursuit of power. You don't do it once they fucking arrive. They need to have the threat of not achieving their goal in their mind. Nick from Social MMA on Twitter, Nick on RBN a while ago, he said, why would I give up my leverage by just blindly supporting a candidate? Like, because he learned from his experience from Bernie in 2020. He said, why would I give up my leverage by blindly supporting a candidate, defending everything they do? Because now they know that just to protect, and people do this, right? It's human nature. No one wants to look like they made the wrong decision, right? So what do? No matter what that candidate does, they do not criticize them legitimately. I'm not saying you got to hate the person, like, that's just emotionally immature. But to protect the ego, because you want to not only do you want your candidate to win, perhaps because you actually do believe in their policies, but you want them to win because you want to win. You see their success as an extension of your good decision making, right? And you're great. Like, that's how humans work. Your ego gets wrapped up in the candidacy, and then you're going to support them, do whatever they say, support their mistakes regardless. So why would you give up leverage by letting them know, yeah, I could tell you, like I said, I believe in a lot of things that Cornel West talks about, believe in a lot of things that RFK talks about. I have problems with some of the stuff that RFK does, or really not that many, but the Israel-Palestine thing is the biggest issue. He also said something about the Soviet Union that was like technically false, but I let it slide because like most people don't know the truth. But with Cornel West, same thing. I have like some people's biggest issue is Israel-Palestine. Like, that's a non-negotiable. And normally, foreign policy-wise, that is a non-negotiable for me for the most part, normally. But because of my personal experiences, the jab, that situation, the whole situation, like not just the jab itself, but I had family members die. My family was torn to pieces because of those policies. That is the non-negotiable issue for me. And it's for the same reason that a Palestinian finds their issue to be non-negotiable, because their lives are being destroyed. They have a right for that to be a non-negotiable issue. So my life, my family's life, I lost 2 family members because of that, and a third because they didn't have those 2 family members in their lives, and they ended up down the wrong path, and no one could help them. And so they end up being killed. So like, that is a non-negotiable for me. And guess what? I'm not going to give anyone my endorsement until somebody starts squaring these circles. And you shouldn't either. Like, one of the reasons, somebody asked me, why wouldn't I support Trump? I'm going to talk about this briefly before moving on. But somebody asked me, why wouldn't I support Trump? They were kind of joking. They were making a joke, saying, man, Niko, hey, bro, you should just support Trump, like, because people will fall for it immediately. Like, you would be the most famous. Like, you would be more famous than Candace Owens if you supported Trump. Literally, they were like, support Trump and just do a bait and switch. He's like, you know, most of these like black Trump supporters are only supporting him because you say his name. You pretend like you were liberal before. You pretend to be, well, I was a Bernie supporter, and then you like act like you made this huge switch to Trump, and everybody just jump on board. But then when you switch to, like, you pull the Joe Rogan and you kind of go like quasi-socialist, no one cares anymore because you're actually just still talking about the same issues, and they still respect you for being Trump before. Like, you already got like, literally, he was telling me how these people be, that's their game plan a lot of the time. He straight up told me that, but he was like, why? Like, what would be the one reason? Like, he asked me seriously, what would be the one reason you don't support Trump outside of like the foreign policy stuff? Because, you know, he isn't technically, no, like, Trump is actually technically not as bad as, which is crazy to say, but he was nowhere near as bad as Obama. He was nowhere near as bad as Biden has been. He's, you know, tried to make peace with North Korea and South Korea. But he said, what would be the, I said, oh, Operation Warp Speed, 100%. He gave in to Fauci, even though he knew better. He gave in to Fauci. He gave in to Operation Warp Speed. He pretended that he was not in league with the powers that be on that particular issue, and he gave in. I will not forgive him for Operation Warp Speed, and I don't really forgive him for the situation with the CARES Act. We could have, I mean, I know it sounds like weird. We could have waited at least another month to get that taken care of, so that it wasn't the largest corporate giveaway in history. I appreciate the fact that he called them out, and I appreciate the fact that he challenged them on it, but like, he should have went to war over that. I'm like, my criticisms of Trump are not the same as everybody, like as like somebody with Trump derangement syndrome. But like, my criticisms of Trump and why I wouldn't vote for him, like, those are key issues for Trump supporters. And I'm just genuinely surprised that they don't care enough about them. Like, that's my problem. So everybody's going to have issues. Like, I get it. I'm not like, oh, you got to be 100% in line with me. That's not, but what I will not do anymore. I will support, I will give support. And if somebody asks me like that for help, because of they want to get a message right and they want to understand, like, I will absolutely do, because I believe in furthering the conversation. I believe in progression. I believe in helping humans better understand the world. Like, we can only do that through interactions and experiences. I will help with that, but I will not do blind loyalty. That's what I will not do. You will have to earn my vote the day that I go to the voting booth. You will need to earn my vote. And you should want to. You should desire that. You should expect to be every single day. You should, because you can tell whenever people stop working to earn your vote, right? I feel like that because they stop growing, they stop evolving. RFK actually had a situation where he was kind of russiagating, and then someone gave him all the information. And I learned this from somebody in his campaign, actually. Like, they were giving him all the information about Russiagate, and he's like, hey, I got new information. I was wrong. My bad. So, like, you know why? Because okay, I need to get this stuff right. That is the demeanor, the mindset of somebody who's trying to garner votes still. It is what it is. So even going independent, that's a demeanor in the minds. Bernie Sanders was not that. Bernie Sanders was stuck in his ways. Bernie Sanders was quoting the same shit. Bernie Sanders was Russiagate, even though he admitted they like Russia ain't cheating nothing. That was a DNC. Remember, you went on the whole tour together. You and Eric Perez. Eric Perez. It was Tom Perez. Oh, Tom Perez. I said Eric Perez. I think it's Tom Perez. But yeah, y'all on the whole tour together because you got cheated. And then you're like, yeah, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. The fuck? No. Bernie is who he is. This nonsense with the warmongering and bro, you're a Jewish man. Bernie, you're a Jewish man cheering to send money to neo-Nazis. I can't even, you know what? I wanted to show y'all a video, but we're on YouTube. So I can't even show y'all the video that I want to show y'all. I can't show because there are too many Nazi insignias in this festival in Ukraine that was held over the weekend in celebration of a Nazi brigade. I can't even show y'all the video, bro. That's how many Nazi symbols and paraphernalia was in the video. For real, that ass. That's you, and you're a Jewish man who wants you waffle back and forth on Israel. Got to protect Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself. We got to remember what the Nazis did to the Jews. Okay, so what about what the Nazis are doing now? Well, that's different. Got to send money because Russia bad. What about violating NATO? Violating the Minsk agreement with NATO? What about the bombing of ethnic Russians? What about not respecting the sovereignty of the Donbass region or Crimea? What about all that? What about the fact that they're canceling elections? What about the fact that they banned political parties that are not based in Nazi ideology? What about that? What about the fact that Canada literally just stood up and applauded a literal Nazi? What about that? We're not going to talk about that? It's interesting. But Bernie, the Jewish carpenter, ironically enough, wants to send money to Ukraine. Can't make this stuff up, bro. Oh, but it gets better. Speaking of Ukraine, y'all want to see this hilarious? I don't know how else to describe this article but as being hilarious, because the title of the article is wild, and then as you read, you start to realize pretty quickly they never actually addressed the title in the article. Some of you might have saw this on Twitter already, but we're going. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for this fun? This y'all gonna get a little bit of a laugh today. And I gotta go after this one. I gotta do some work. I mean, other work. Hold on 1 second. Let me tweet this. I might be streaming later on today too, by the way. But y'all see this? This is the what? Like I've been saying, I said, yo, what? Oh my God. Nope. I'm gonna show y'all this first. I gotta collect my props on this one. I got to, because what I said something the other day that, well, I've been saying this, but I said something the other day that on Twitter that I just did not know would end up manifesting into this in like less than 24 to 48 hours. I'm gonna find a tweet. Hold on. Sorry, I tweeted like I like to go through. I said, come on, where you at? Damn, I tweet a lot, y'all. Oh, I'm almost there. Almost there. I found it. Yeah. I need to show y'all this first before I show y'all that article. It was worth the wait, I promise you. I said on September 29th, I said a couple, you can see it? Okay, cool. I said a couple of years ago that if you look at Western foreign policy post-World War II, institutional appointments in the history of how Nazis came to be, it is clear that the Nazis didn't lose World War II. Hitler died. That's not the same thing. Nazis were merely rebranded. I'm gonna do another show sometime. I'm gonna try to do it sometime this week. Just revamping. Because people need to understand. Like I did a show about it a while ago, but I'm gonna do another one because they need to understand like just how clear it is that like Nazis didn't win or didn't lose. But I said that the next logical question should be who facilitated the Nazis' rise to power to begin with, and who gave them important positions in NATO and other institutions. So those people are still in power and are crafting our policies today. I said, hold on. Oh, one of my tweets is gone. I also said, I can't find it, but what I also said was that eventually what we're going to see is that they're going to flip. They're going to say that Russians were always the bad guys and that what the Nazis were doing weren't necessarily like, yeah, they did some bad things, But just because you were in the German army and you fought against Russia, like that doesn't mean you were a bad guy. Like, and that's why we created NATO, because we knew that Russia, like I said that they were going to flip it. So now fast forward to this article, hoping YouTube doesn't ban me for this. Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Y'all, ain't no way. Like when I saw the title of the article, I said, no, I got to read this one. Normally I would just laugh and pass it. I would laugh at it like, man, this is dumb shit. Like I'm not about to. But then you have to remember, this is in the context of Canada applauding a Nazi after pretending they didn't know who he was. A Nazi who fought in World War II specifically against Russia. And I even did a video where I said, yo, shouldn't the biggest clue have been a World War II veteran who was in Ukraine fighting against Russia? Like literally, that leaves the option of you being a Nazi, and then that's it. Like and I said that on one of my videos for Hotspot, and I guess they, Politico might have got word of it, and here we are. So yeah, fighting against USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. So let's hear the argument that they make, guys. Maybe it's legit. Maybe it's legit. A lot of black people in this photo. Sarcasm. Mr. Kier Giles is an author and commentator. His recent book, Russia's War on Everybody, seems to be completely mistitled. I think he spelled United States wrong here. Just saying. Looks at the effects that Russia's malign influence around the world has on ordinary people. So clearly, this guy is extremely trustworthy, and we should believe everything that we're about to read. Right? He's about to make a strong argument. Totally valid, not biased at all. He says, a lie can make it halfway around the world before the truth has even got its boots on. Oh, man, gotta love the descriptive language here. And the ongoing turmoil over Canada's parliament, recognizing former SS trooper Yaroslav Hunka, highlights one of the most important reasons why. First of all, I feel like that's not the ongoing turmoil over Canada's parliament, the ongoing criticism over the fact that Canada's parliament applauded former Nazi trooper Yaroslav Hunka. I feel like you see how this article not really starting well, right? We already, like, how the hell did you word salad that one? How did you word jujitsu your way out of admitting that they applauded a Nazi? Ongoing turmoil in Canada's parliament. ain't no turmoil, boy. Y'all applauded a Nazi and people were pissed. Anyway, he says something that's untrue but simple is far more You see how he immediately goes into the next paragraph, like as if that's like a lie that's being spread? What? He says something that's untrue but simple is far more persuasive than a complicated, nuanced truth. The major problem for Western democracies trying to fight disinformation and propaganda by countering it with the truth. And one reason why fact-checking and debunking are only of limited use for doing so. I'm assuming this guy knows a thing or two about propaganda. So maybe we should take his word for it. Okay, so let's see if he makes, because he hasn't made his argument yet, but let's just see if he does a good job making this argument. Okay, fighting against the USSR during World War II, doesn't mean you're not. So let's see if he makes an argument. In the case of Hunka, the mass outrage stems from his enlistment with one of the foreign legions of the Waffen SS fighting Soviet forces on Germany's Eastern Front. Now, I want to be clear about something, just so you know your history. Germany sent its soldiers during World War II to fight on the Eastern Front to attack the USSR, and those soldiers were wearing Nazi insignias. So what he should be saying is, yeah, Hunka enlisted in the Foreign Legion of Waffen-SS to fight the Soviets as a Nazi during World War II, like the rest of the Nazis who were fighting against the Soviets on the Eastern Front during World War II. He says it's complicated, but that's, it's whatever, cool. And it's a demonstration of how when history is complicated, it can be a gift to propagandists who exploit and appeal. What? I'm gonna read that again. In the case of Honka, the mass outrage stems from his enlistment with one of the foreign legions of the Waffen-SS, fighting Soviet forces on Germany's Eastern Front. And it's a demonstration of how, when history is complicated, it can be a gift to propagandists who exploit the appeal of simplicity. Once again, he is talking about propaganda as if he is an expert, so you got to give him that. This history is complicated because fighting against the USSR at the time didn't necessarily make you a Nazi, just someone who had an excruciating choice over which of these two terror regimes to resist. Terror regimes to resist. Russia was minding its own damn business at this point in time when Germany decided to attack them. Remember, there's like a whole peace deal. Russia was literally minding its business at this point. Terror regimes? That's wild, bro. You had the excruciating choice, be a Nazi or not be a Nazi. Oh God. Woe is me. Don't like me personally, I probably would have been like, yo, I don't hate everybody who isn't white with blonde hair and blue eyes. Like, so I'm probably not gonna be a Nazi. I don't want to go to war with the entire world, so I'm probably not gonna be a Nazi. But whatever. Apparently it was an excruciating decision. However, the idea that foreign volunteers and conscripts were being allocated to the Waffen-SS rather than the Wehrmacht on administrative rather than ideological grounds is a hard sell for audiences conditioned to believe that the SS's primary task was genocide. Holy do y'all hear this? This man said that the SS is we're just conditioned to believe that the Nazi battalion that was fighting the USSR on the Eastern Front during World War II, the same Nazi battalion that belonged to Germany, that was literally trying to take over not the country, not the region, but the world, we're supposed to believe that battalion full of Nazis, they weren't hell-bent on genocide. Where'd y'all get that from? Motherfucker, we got it from y'all. If y'all got one thing right in the history books that everybody seems to agree with, is that Nazis were bad and Nazis tried to genocide people. That was like a whole thing. Remember? But now we're being told that's crazy talk. It's a simple narrative, guys. And simple narratives like everybody in the SS was guilty of war crimes are more pervasive because they're much simpler to grasp. I don't know if everybody in the SS was guilty of war crimes. I actually haven't even heard that. To be honest, I really haven't. But I do know that y'all are Nazis. Man, what's also crazy to me about this particular piece is all of a sudden a mainstream media publication cares about nuance. When we know, God damn, these are the same publications, bro. This Politico was the same publication that pushed the Russiagate theory because some random CIA agent anonymously said, yeah, Russiagate definitely happened for sure. We know that for a fact. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Okay, what about all the evidence suggesting otherwise? Yeah, nah. Definitely 100% happened. This is the same one talking about Americans just don't understand nuance, man. All right, I guess. It says Canada's enemies have thus latched. Canada's enemies. Canada don't got no enemies, bro. Why are you trying to make Canada more important than it is? Who is Canada's enemies? Canada's only enemy is the goddamn temperature, if we're being honest. That is it. That's all. And Trudeau. Because, you know, Trudeau is trash and literally allowed his parliament to applaud Nazis. And I know that motherfucker tried to be like, hey guys, you know, the speaker, he's really sorry. He's going to resign. In the parliament, they're really sorry about this too. And all Canadians, they're super sorry about this as well. We don't know how we got in here. Bro, you are the prime minister. That means you minister primarily. You are the primary minister of things that need to be ministered in a fashion that concerns Canada. And you gonna be like, nah, hey man, that was a speaker, dog. I had nothing to do with that. Y'all think they didn't go through a rigorous? Bro, before you speak in front of any parliament, legislature, bro, they go through everything about your life before you go up there. I mean, they're about to interview about everything about your life. So yeah, usually. So before you even step foot in a session, they know everything about you. And they're going to try to tell us that they didn't know about this, whatever. That's cool. But it says Canada's enemies that don't exist thus have latched onto these simple narratives alongside concerned citizens in Canada itself with the misstep over Hunka being used by Russia and its backers to attack Ukraine, Canada, and each country's association with each other. According to Russia's ambassador to Canada, Hunka's unit committed multiple war crimes, which is a fact, including mass murder against Russian people, ethnic Russians. This is a proven fact, but whenever Russian officials calls something a proven fact, it should set off alarms. Huh? No, whenever any American or European official says something is a proven fact, it should set off alarms. Like, Russia hasn't really lied about these. They fought Nazis and won. I'm like, if they're telling you Nazis committed war crimes, I'm like going to take their side because they beat the shit out of Nazis. And like, now they're not, well, can't say they're no more Nazis, but whatever. It says, and sure enough, excuse me, here too, the facts were invented out of thin air. Repeated exhaustive investigations, like what? Exhaustive investigations, including by not only the Nuremberg trials, but also the British, Canadian, and even the Soviet authorities, led to the conclusion that no war crimes or atrocities had been committed by this particular unit. Let's look at I want to see the exhaustive investigations. Oh, there's not this link. Hold on, let me see. I'm waiting for this link to load to see if there actually were exhaustive investigations. Because, you know, sometimes mainstream articles will just link some shit and like, yeah, man, hopefully you don't actually click on this hyperlink because if you do, it's going to prove that I'm full of shit. So anyway. This is just the latest twist in a long-running campaign by the Russian embassy in Ottawa, dating back to the Soviet times when the USSR would leverage accusations of Nazi collaboration for political purposes as part of its active measures operations. And given Moscow's own history of aggression and atrocities during World War II, which they haven't talked about, and its aftermath, there's a special cynicism underlying the Russian accusations. Russia feels comfortable shouting about Nazis, real or imaginary. Bro, there have not been any imaginary Nazis. Anyway, real or imaginary in Russia or elsewhere, because unlike Nazi Germany, leaders and soldiers of the Soviet Union were never put on trial for their war crimes. You mean the leaders in that? No allied power was put on trial for their war crimes. Actually, if you want to be real, I don't know exactly what war crimes he's referring to, because everybody just says they had war crimes. But it says Russia clings to the Nuremberg trials as a benchmark of legitimacy because as a victorious power, it was never subjected to the same reckoning, almost like the United States in how they bombed Japan for no reason. Whatever. And yet both before and after their collective collaborative effort to carve up Eastern Europe between them. No, the collective and collaborative effort by the United States, like FDR in the Yalta Conference, where that happened, whatever. And yet both before and after their collective and collaborative effort to carve up Eastern Europe between them, the Soviets and the Nazis had so much in common that it's now illegal to point to the similarities out in Russia. Y'all, I want y'all to understand something. What is the title of this article? Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Right? That's what the title of this article says. I'm not crazy. Where I read 3/4 of that article. I read all of it yesterday, but we got through 3/4 of that article. Did they give you a single example of someone who was part of a Nazi unit during World War II fighting the USSR who wasn't a Nazi? Did they give one simple example? Did they get a single example, y'all? Did I miss it? You know, my reading comprehension may not be up to par. It may not be what it once was. But did I miss the example? The article literally says, fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. They did not give a single example of a group of people who, specifically a group of people from Germany, part of the Wafer unit, that fought against Russia and wasn't a Nazi. They tried to make some weird claim that, yeah, man, they were Nazis, but like they didn't commit war crimes, you know. Also, they're kind of bad. And USSR was bad too. Like, no, that's not what we're talking about. We talking about your article with your title that your senior editor approved that said fighting against the USSR didn't mean you were a Nazi, and you literally did not. And what's even crazier, bro, and I can't show the video. Like, I can't show it. I want to show it, but I know I'm gonna get in trouble by YouTube because there's a video of literally thousands of people in Ukraine celebrating the same battalion that Hunka belonged to. And I can't show the video because it's full of Nazi paraphernalia and Nazi tattoos and Nazi keychains. When I can't even go like that's what's crazy. I can't even make the argument, people. I can't even use that video evidence to show just how Nazi this Nazi unit was because it's too Nazi for streaming services. There is too much Naziing going on for the streaming service for me to show you more evidence of just how Nazi this Nazi battalion was or this Nazi brigade was. And they got this he wrote an article that had the audacity to have the title, just because you fought against the USSR doesn't mean you're a Nazi. Well, can you give me an example? You can't even give me a single example of the title that you fucking put out. Man, propaganda is crazy, dog. Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah, man, y'all know USSR, they did some bad things too sometimes. Okay. Right. Yeah, and they might have been Nazi sometimes. Okay. So, but USSR, they weren't always good. Okay. All right. Still waiting. All right. So we're just not. So you're not going to give me. But that is propaganda. They started out the article with this premise, with the title, fighting against the USSR, like, does not necessarily make you a Nazi. And they did that because they knew all the liberals, the neoliberals, the people who are pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia, pro-Western propaganda, pro-NATO, they're going to retweet it, right? They're not going to read the article. They're going to retweet, they're going to share, and they're going to screenshot. See, told y'all, not everybody who fucking, boy, you take 5 minutes to read the article and I read the article twice yesterday because I was confused. I was like, hold up, maybe it's like, did they edit it or something? Did they change? Like, is this a new title or did they take some information out? How do you read this and be like, man, that title definitely did this article justice for sure? No, it did not. It didn't do any justice to it. That title makes no sense with the article. So until otherwise proven, just let everybody know in case y'all want to know what the conclusion of this particular situation is. If you are from the German military during World War II and you fought on the Eastern Front against the USSR, you were a Nazi. It was a Nazi. The unit was a Nazi unit. They were not on the side of the Allied powers. And the Allied powers, if I'm being completely honest, weren't altruistic their damn selves. That's a whole different conversation. But Nazi. The article is wrong. Like, there's an exception. Like, at some point, I think Russia and Japan were engaged in their own little thing, like during World War II. Like, but also Japan was fighting at that particular moment on the side of Nazis. So, like, yeah, you might not have been a Nazi, but you were a Japanazi. Just saying, by extension, it doesn't really help your case. That's all I'm saying. Just because you were speaking Japanese, like, doesn't mean like it helps your case. That's all I'm saying. There is nuance to be discussed, but the nuance doesn't really change the fact that, yes, fighting against World War II fighting against USSR on the Eastern Front in World War II from Germany, for part of a German unit, you were a Nazi. Yeah, there is no nuance. That is the nuance. With that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People podcast. Make sure y'all like this video. Make sure y'all share this video. Make sure you subscribe. Go subscribe to my Telegram as well. The link is in the description. That way you can get all the news and the content and all that good stuff. Make sure I subscribe also to Hotspot on Twitter. Hotspot is the Twitter handle where I do my shorter segments. I got one coming out today. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's coming. Make sure y'all support the show. You can do so through Cash App if you have it. Patreon if you have it. Also, you can become, the best way to do it is to become a Rockfin Premium subscriber. And that link is also in the description as well. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.